I was the fat sister until I became the star of the wedding. Growing up, my weight was the first thing people noticed about me. While other kids were figuring out their favorite cartoons and dream careers, I was already branded as the big girl. It followed me through high school, a constant shadow that attracted mockery and made me feel like I existed on the outskirts of normal teenage life. College wasn't any better. I watched my peers discover themselves, thrive in new social circles, while I remained trapped in the identity that had been assigned to me since childhood, the overweight girl who was good with books but never fit in. I used to tell myself that it didn't matter, that I was fine being invisible. But deep down, I longed for acceptance, for someone to see me beyond the size of my body. The bullying was relentless. Classmates tossed insults my way with the ease of breathing. They'd laugh, call me names, make crude jokes at my expense, as if my feelings were just collateral damage in their daily entertainment. But nothing stung more than the betrayal of my own sister, Bonnie. Bonnie was the complete opposite of me. Charismatic, effortlessly popular, the kind of person who lit up a room just by stepping into it. For years, I adored her. She was my little sister, and I wanted to protect her. But as we grew older, I realized she didn't feel the same way about me. She started to distance herself, pretending not to know me at school, ignoring me in hallways, laughing when her friends made fun of me. It hurt, but I swallowed the pain and convinced myself that siblings just grew apart sometimes. But Bonnie didn't just ignore me, she actively participated in my humiliation. If there was a chance to make me the butt of a joke, she took it. At home, when her friends came over, they would barge into my room, mocking me, pointing at my body, and calling me names. I begged my parents to stop them, to at least acknowledge that what Bonnie was doing was cruel. But they brushed it off. "She's just teasing," they said. "You need to learn to take a joke." The only time my parents seemed to truly see me was when I brought home my report cards. Straight A's. That was my redemption. It was the one thing I was better at than Bonnie, the only time I felt a flicker of pride in their eyes. But even that caused problems. Bonnie hated being compared to me academically, so she retaliated in the only way she knew how, by sabotaging me. I would wake up to find my assignments missing, my essays mysteriously deleted. I once overheard her laughing about it with her friends, bragging about how she'd made me cry over a stolen research paper. Years later, she drunkenly admitted it to me, as if it were a fond childhood memory. As if the nights I spent in tears, scrambling to redo stolen work, meant nothing. That was Bonnie. She never had to face consequences. And my parents? They were too blinded by her charm to ever hold her accountable. Everything changed when Bonnie got engaged. Suddenly, my weight became the family's biggest concern. My mother sat me down and told me, as gently as possible, that I needed to lose weight before the wedding. Not for my health, not for my own happiness, but because she didn't want me to embarrass the family in the pictures. I wanted to scream, to tell them all to go to hell. But instead I nodded. If this was the only way they'd acknowledge me, then fine. I'd do it. I threw myself into it. I changed my diet, worked out until I felt like collapsing, pushed myself harder than I ever had. Months passed, and the weight melted off. By the time the wedding rolled around, I was unrecognizable. And for the first time in my life, people looked at me differently. Bonnie's friends, the same ones who used to torment me, suddenly wanted to talk. Relatives who had always ignored me now couldn't stop gushing about how stunning I looked. Even my parents treated me with a newfound pride, as if my worth had finally increased because my body had shrunk. But Bonnie, she hated it. She couldn't stand the attention shifting away from her. At her own wedding, she sulked whenever someone complimented me. She even snapped at a cousin for mentioning how much I had changed. That's when I realized Bonnie only loved being my sister when I was the inferior one. After the wedding, I kept going. I built a life for myself outside of my family's expectations. I found confidence, friends who valued me for more than just my appearance, and the more I grew, the less I cared about what my family thought. When Bonnie tried to reconnect, I didn't let her back in. When my parents asked me why I never visited, I told them the truth. They had spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough. And now, I was more than enough, with or without their approval. Losing weight didn't just change how I looked. It changed how I saw myself. And for the first time, I wasn't willing to shrink myself just to fit into their narrative. Looking back, I realized that my journey was never just about weight loss. It was about reclaiming my self-worth, proving to myself that I was strong enough to break free from the labels they had placed on me. I started to love my body, not because it was smaller, but because it was mine, and I had fought for it. Now, I live for myself. I travel. I surround myself with people who uplift me, and I pursue dreams that once felt out of reach. I don't need validation from my parents, my sister, or anyone else. And when I see Bonnie's name flash across my phone, I let it ring.